Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be all about daily pages, mainly cousin daily pages. However, I think a lot of what I talk about can probably apply to the A6 original anyway, but these are kind of my favourite layouts for the dailies for kind of planning, or primarily for planning anyway. I've kind of got 6 rough, I guess, categories of daily layout that I'm going to take you through that I have done over 3 years in my Hobonichi. If you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that this year I haven't used my cousin for daily planning at all, and the year before I actually had to take a note, so that's why it's kind of these particular years. To kick off, let's talk journaling. Okay, so first up is what I'm calling my journaling category, and that's where effectively I split the page up into 3 really. I have my usual kind of schedule down the side. I have kind of either my to-dos or maybe some notes, or anything I want to kind of track in there or anything, and then I leave the whole of the bottom half for journaling. That can be with some stickers, or basically just writing things out. Some days if I've got a lot of to-dos, then I might have a little bit of journaling, but I find this is a good way to particularly if you don't have a huge amount to plan, this is a good way to feel like you've used up the page without necessarily filling it with plans, particularly if you want to do some drawing, or like I've done here, like use some stickers or washi. It's a good way to fill up that page. Next we have what is probably my favorite daily page layout, and it's what I tend to call the quadrant. And as the name probably suggests, I split my pages up into 4, and generally kind of what I split them up into 4 and how I use them does kind of change from one day to the next, but normally it's schedule in the top left with the timing, then it's to-do list for the day, then there might be a kind of specific to-do list in terms of a category. So sometimes I might put kind of life to-dos here, and then here I might put kind of shop or content to-dos, and then the last one most of the time I do kind of have for food tracking, maybe exercise logging, things like that. What I have sometimes done in the past is, if I've got quite a busy day for kind of shop things and not necessarily like real life things, if that makes sense, I might have kind of one quadrant for everything to do with Etsy shop, one quadrant everything to do with the blog, and then one for YouTube. And just I do like kind of compartmentalizing my tasks by category sometimes, and this layout works really well for that. What you will kind of notice is that I don't necessarily always use these top boxes. I probably should have maybe given a bit of an overview of the daily pages before I kind of started the video, so apologies if this is kind of new for you and you haven't really seen the layout of the daily pages. But effectively you do have kind of 5 to-do boxes there, then you have your time, and then everything else is kind of empty. There is kind of a faint line which may struggle to see, but just kind of there to kind of give a bit of a line between kind of the timing and everything else, and that's partly why the quadrant lines are kind of as they are, because I follow that line down. But yeah, this is another good example actually where I think this was to do with, I think this was stickers that I was making, and I kind of had split out different kind of stickers according to the category I was doing, and then that was just kind of all of my to-dos and my schedule as normal. But yeah, one of my favourite layouts, and next year my cousin, if I do end up kind of doing any daily planning, I probably will do something similar to this. So this layout I am calling to-do lists, because it is basically just a load of to-dos, but it's not kind of separated out kind of like some of the other layouts. How I've done this is I've planned out my day around kind of my schedule when I need to do things, and then I've basically kind of time blocked in here. So where I've got chores, I've planned the time to do that. I've planned the time to do shop stuff, so here it was 3 hours worth, and then more shop time. And then what I've done is effectively taken out a to-do list by that time blocking, or rather aligned to that time blocking. So these were all the chores that I intended to do in that hour, and then these are all the shop things that I intended to do kind of in these 2 times. and then I've kind of just used extra space. So I wanted a bit of a brainstorm area for next week for when I was kind of planning next week's actual kind of full layout, a few bits of kind of self-care things that I probably did in the evening. But I really like this kind of way of time blocking and then sectioning out my tasks according to the time chunk. It's something that I've only done a few times, but I find it really effective, particularly if, like me, you've got kind of a lot of kind of separate kind of areas that you need to work on. So, you know, what I would consider like life stuff, or in this scenario chores, and then kind of shop things. It just allows me to block out that time, but then be really clear around what I actually need to do, rather than just kind of writing either the to-do list or writing chores out. I actually, you know, got full clarity on, okay, I've got an hour and I need to do all of that. So this one is a bit of a, I guess, a bit of a messier layout, kind of encompassing a few of the kind of previous layouts, and this is very simple, as you can see, quite kind of sticker heavy and decorative heavy. But effectively I've used this for my kind of like top tasks for the day. I've done my kind of plan in terms of any scheduled events, and then I've added in kind of to-do lists according to kind of sections. So general to do, these are photographs that I needed to take, some blog ideas, and then I've done a little bit of journaling. And I do quite like just adding in just a little bit of journaling, you know, not huge amounts, just a bit kind of here and there. I'm not a big writer of you know, thoughts and feelings and things like that, so just having a little bit of a summary of the day, I really like that. And yeah, it's quite messy and it's not a daily layout that I go back to often, but I wanted to mention it because I quite like it as a bit of a combo of lots of different layouts. Next we go on to kind of a build from the last one, but adding in more of a scrapbook element. So same bit of journaling, just, you know, like highlight of the day almost, and then adding in some pictures. And this was kind of the first time that I started putting pictures into the daily pages of my cousin, and that's kind of what prompted me, like last year, having to take a note primarily almost to use it as a scrapbook, and then continuing that but back in the cousin this year with just lots of pictures and a bit of, you know, this is what I did today, or a little bit of journaling. But it kind of all started off from trying to incorporate it into my planning. Again, if you don't have a huge amount to plan but you like the cousin, simple schedule down the left hand side, your main to-do list for the day, and then add in some pictures, maybe a bit of washi, a bit of journaling around, you know, what you did that day. Done. Looks quite pretty, I think, anyway. Okay, the last one is probably a bit of a cheeky extra one to add in, really, because it is quite similar to some of the others, but this is kind of the layout that I do when I am in kind of full productivity mode, and I, you know, don't necessarily need to kind of carve out my quadrants or kind of lay it out in categories quite that neatly, because maybe I've got more than 3 categories to write lists for. But it basically is just get my schedule down here. That is probably one thing that you'll notice kind of looking at all these daily pages. I always maintain the schedule. I only ever don't use this as a schedule if I'm using the page for something other than planning. So if I'm using this as kind of a bit of a commonplace book, so yeah, I'll kind of cover it up, or I'll just write over it. But if it's a planning page, I will always fill this in. Sometimes I won't necessarily fill it in advance. I might do a bit of a how did I spend my day, because that's sometimes quite interesting to look back on, particularly if you kind of split it in two and do what was my plan for the day and then what did I actually do. But I will always use this as a schedule. The rest is just basically a load of to-do lists. So as you can see here, I kind of had my top 5 of the day, then I had photographs I needed to take, general to-dos, general kind of brainstorm for this week coming, because it was on a Monday, a bit of an overview of the week, then there was some notes. And yes, this wouldn't have worked in kind of my quadrant layout. I just needed all of the space to write all of the lists, all of the notes, and it works really well for me when I'm kind of in that zone of I just need all the space. Sometimes I will kind of pretty it up and use it as a bit of a way to kind of, you know, add a bit of decorative elements to it, but ultimately it is just lots and lots of lists. hopefully that very quick kind of run through my favourite layouts was helpful. Hopefully it's given you some ideas around how to use the daily pages. If you are kind of struggling with having enough plans to, you know, fill the dailies, or you've just bought a cousin and you're kind of thinking this is way too much, I don't need all of this, potentially that's given you some ideas. If not, I do have a video from a few weeks ago where I go through the Hobonichi Cousin and kind of talk through each section and how you can use it if you don't want to use it for planning. I will leave a link to that in the cards. Check it out because you may find some useful tips in there. But if you do have any questions about the daily pages or anything around how I use them, please just drop me a comment. I love chatting with you guys in the comments, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.